All right, we're live. Good morning. What's up, brother?
Good morning.
Well, let's get on with the Money morning topic of the most unbelievable things we've seen. This is kind of a red meat, but do me a favor if you guys are watching this somewhere else on the internet, like Twitter or Facebook. I'm just going to drop the link. If you can come over to YouTube, it helps us out with the channel. This is where we're trying to build the main audience. So just click that if you got a second. All right. There's some crazy stuff that we've seen over the years. I mean, I got into this business early 90s. I think it was 91, 92. I remember like my first week in the business, I had this older guy behind me and he used to yell so loud, like spit would hit me in the back of the head. That's the way things were back then. And that was just before a time they used to talk about where they could smoke at their desks and they would have these file folders and they had all these other things like couch payments. You guys can read between the lines and figure out what that is. But this is a very interesting kind of industry where some strange things do happen based on creditor, debtor, and collection agency behavior, and even the regulators. Because I want to talk about the regulation of the industry too, because that's something that I played a big part in about 8 or 9 years ago, roughly. So you got a list of some stuff together, Andrew. I'll let you go through that, and I'll deal with the stuff tied around the regulation towards the end. So craziest stuff that you've seen in these different categories. I mean, you can boil it down to the top one, the top two, but I mean, we usually do these in 15, 20 minutes, so keep an eye on the clock.
Yeah, so I made a list of the top two per item, which is the top two unbelievable things a client's done, top two things, unbelievable things a bank has done, and top two things unbelievable that a collection agency's done. So I'll talk about each one of them briefly. First one I'm going to talk about is creditors, banks, and the top two unbelievable things that they do. The first one is commencing a lawsuit against an individual who is unenforceable, also known as judgment proof. And that is essentially meaning that a successful judgment through the court system would fail to materialize any money for that bank because that individual in question does not own property and does not have an income that is garnishable. So that is essentially...
So it's like throwing good money after bad.
Yeah, so it's
pretty dumb.
Yeah, so it's essentially the bank trying to enforce or trying to get money back from someone they have no means and no method to get the money from. Now, it's not often that banks do this, but it does occur. And I think the most recent example of this happening was about a month ago. I've seen a husband and wife combo, clients combo. Both of them are not gainfully employed and neither of them own property. They are renters, and the bank litigated against each of them separately. And I raised that to the counsel, to the opposing representative, and I said, hey, listen, I'm not following why your client has instructed you to commence a lawsuit on these individuals. They're unenforceable.
Let me just pause you for a second, because you guys should know that Andrew's a licensed legal professional. He's a paralegal. So when he's talking about, getting involved in the legal system, that's how he gets involved.
Yeah. So, and essentially the opposing representative just mentioned that the bank has given them the instructions to commence litigation. I said, hey, listen, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Your client's not going to get any money out of this. I'm not sure what the purpose was, but notwithstanding, it occurs. So that's the first thing. It is pointless. It's ridiculous, but it happens. The other thing that banks do, which is somewhat unbelievable, is making an offer to settle to a bank and the bank declining the proposal, making a counter offer, which is extremely unreasonable. Now, I recall discussing this type of scenario in a broadcast a few weeks ago. I don't know if it was 4, 6, 8 weeks ago, but it was in the recent past, where the banks will not accept the proposal and the matter essentially just falls off the credit report within 6 to 9 months. Because it's been in default for so long. Now, in Canada, if your account's been in default for 6 years, it falls off your credit report. It's known as purging off your credit report. And on occasion, we negotiate with a bank and it's reaching that point where the account is going to fall off the credit report because it's so delinquent, it's past, it hasn't been paid in so long, yet the bank is not being reasonable. And in turn, they're going to get $0. So just hypothetically speaking, we're talking 10,000 credit card. We go in with an offer of say 5,000. The bank says no, they want 10,000. They want the full amount back, and our client doesn't have it. So the client says, I can't source that kind of money. I can't find that kind of money. I'm done. Well, the bank has now got $0 out of that. So it's like, why would you agree to take $0 rather than agree to take the $5,000? No logic behind it. It's unbelievable. It happens. The next thing I want to talk about is unbelievable things clients do. Now, we've also talked about this in detail in past shows. The most unbelievable thing is individuals buying toys, financing toys when they can't afford to get out of debt. So they're already carrying a ton of credit cards, line of credit, store charge cards, all that debt that they've already got. And yet they think it's a wise choice to go out and finance themselves an ATV, a boat, a Sea-Doo, a snowmobile, a new truck, a trailer, whatever it happens to be. It happens all the time. And it's like, what are you doing? You can't even eliminate that debt, and you've gone and purchased a new $100,000 pickup truck. Makes no sense whatsoever. It happens.
How often does that happen? Like, if you were to, I mean, you've been doing this for a while. So if you were to put a percentage of the population, like what percentage of the Canadian population do you think behaves this way, where they think that they're entitled to stuff and toys just because it's a don't pay a cent event, or buy now and pay later, or just make your minimum payments for the rest of your life? Like, what does that look like for you?
It really depends on the type of income the individual has. The higher the household income, the more likely it is that they're going to want to do this, because they think that they've got disposable income they can use to pay towards the truck payment, the RV payment, the boat payment, whatever it might be. But realistically speaking, income is irrelevant, because if you've got the income, you should be using it to service your debt, get your debt eliminated if you're carrying debt to begin with. And then after that, you should be putting the money aside, at least a good chunk of it, into investment for your future. Because if you retire without any money, you might go from a $6,000 a month income down to $1,500 when you're getting your federal pensions from CPP and OAS. Well, you're not going to be able to sustain your lifestyle. So it happens more often than I'd like it to happen, but it's not as high as I'm potentially making it out to be. It's all based on income. The higher income earners generally are the ones that are doing this because they've got the disposable income that they feel that they can use to allocate towards the payments on the truck and the RV and the boat. Whereas
the thing that I've noticed that people never really seem to understand or even paying attention to is the cost of borrowing, which all that really means is, let's say you buy a $30,000 boat. I don't know what the finance rate is. I mean, let's assume it's 10, 15, 20%, depending on your credit. I mean, it could be as high as 30%, even more, depending on, where you're getting it from, what your credit's like, if it's new, if it's used, if it's something they can repo, if they've got a tracker on it. There's all kinds of factors that tie into it. But people don't understand the actual cost of borrowing money to pay for stuff. It adds up. I mean, on credit cards alone, because they don't tell you this, but all of these products are designed to make banks and credit card companies money. How do they make money? With interest. How do they make money over a long period of time? They create subscription revenue, which means monthly recurring revenue, MRR. Monthly recurring revenue is what these businesses want from people borrowing crap that they have a collateralized loan against that they have to pay. Could be 10 years, could be 20. With a lot of credit card products, I mean, when they changed the statements, I think it was 2010 or 11, and most people don't notice this, but it says in the statements, on credit card statements, how long it'll take you to pay off that debt if you just make the minimum. We've seen numbers as high as 80, 90, 102. I think I saw one statement once that was like 118 years to pay off the debt if you just make the minimum monthly payments. And this dude was like 40. It's like, you're going to be dead and cold in the ground long before you get anywhere close to paying this thing off. But people get way too comfortable, in my opinion, sitting on debt over a long period of time, thinking that just as long as I throw this at it, everybody will leave me alone, everything's fine. No, you're not fine. You're eliminating your family's wealth, and you're enriching the banks and credit card companies, fattening their wallets.
All right, agreed.
I'll get off my soapbox. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. The other thing that I was going to talk about in respects to clients and unbelievable things that clients do is, so I got a recent example here of an individual who has just recently applied for a loan from a high-risk lender and was approved. So it's listed now on the credit report. And this individual has also applied for 3 separate credit cards within the last month. So this individual, I don't know if those credit card applications have been approved. I'm waiting for the client to get back to me. But essentially, this individual has reached out for 4 different products within the last 60 days, of which I know one of them has been approved and the other 3 may be pending, have been approved, declined. I'm not too sure. Now, why that's unbelievable is because this individual is trying to persuade a creditor that they're struggling financially and that they don't have the means to pay them. Yet they've gone out and applied for credit card products, been approved. So in this example, this individual's got $3,500 from this loan And now we're trying to convince this other creditor that they don't have any money. Well, how do you not have any money if you've just received a loan for $3,500 in December and you've applied for additional credit card products? So we tell our clients when they're in our program that during the term of the plan, you should not be applying for credit. Your intent here is to eliminate your debt, not get yourself more debt. And it's going to hinge and it's going to interfere with the negotiation process if they apply for credit. In this example, this client just very recently has gone out and applied from 4 different banks. And like I said, one of them has been approved for sure. The other 3, I'm not too sure about. I couldn't believe it. I have reached out to that client to ask what is going on. I've yet to hear back, but that's the other unbelievable thing with clients. So I'm just going to talk about one thing for collection agencies, and that is going to be what we deal with on a regular basis. We make an offer to settle to an agency, a collection agency, and they tell us that there's no way that the bank is going to accept that offer, and they're not even going to submit it because they know the bank is going to say no and they don't want to waste their time. Now, we get that quite regularly. Oh, it's not going to happen. The bank's not going to accept that. We know it's not going to happen. And on our end, we're thinking to ourselves, I don't know what you're talking about. We do this regularly. Your client has more than often accepted these types of proposals with merit and with documentation. I'm not sure why you're making such a statement. So the agency refuses to submit the offer to the bank. So what do? We have to submit the offer to the bank. We advise the bank that we've got X dollars available for our client. We provide the financial disclosure of that client. And we also advise the bank that the collection agency that they've hired to represent them has refused to submit the offer for consideration. And more often than not, the bank looks at the offer and says, that is reasonable, we'll accept that. And it makes the collection agency look foolish. Now, I don't know why the agency wishes to do that and make themselves look bad to their client. It's a simple process where all they do is submit the offer to the bank and say, we have this offer on hand for this individual. Would you like to accept it or would you like to decline it? It's not a difficult task to do, but on occasion they refuse to do it. And in turn, that leads us to having to contact that bank. And like I said, I'd say at least 50% plus of the time, the bank's looking at that and saying, that's fine, we can accept that. And it makes the collection agency look foolish. So those are some unbelievable things that we deal with on a regular basis. And Richard, I know you want to talk about the legislation, so I'll let you talk about the unbelievable nature of that.
Yeah, just to touch on that. I mean, I used to, I set up this business in 2003 or 4, I think it was. And I was really involved with all the settlements very early on. I think you joined the company a number of years after that. But I used to get that all the time where you talk to a collection agency and you'd put something reasonable on the table based on the guy's income, expenses, and level of hardship, and just the stuff that went on, and they wouldn't submit it. And I just, like, I was the one that pioneered this, where I would just kind of go through the back door, contact the creditor. And this takes some work. Like, I wrote about this in my book. I mean, if you guys want to learn how to settle your own debt, I have a book on Amazon. It's called Enough is Enough, the DIY Debt Settlement Guide Your Creditors Don't Want You to Know About. Just search for my name or that title and you'll find it. But I mean, I could do it a lot faster than the average person could. But, you'd go around, you'd get the settlement approved. Sometimes you'd have to talk to the ombudsman, maybe somebody that was a collection manager. But it was just dumb. Like, it never made any sense to me that I would do the extra work because I didn't care, because the client was hiring us to get them the settlement. So, I'd go to the creditor, get it approved in writing, and then that would force the collection agency to have to take the payment. Being in collections, I'm sure that they would get in trouble. Like, I know what that's like, because I got client service representatives, and they basically have like a demerit system. I don't know if they still have it now, but they basically had like a demerit system if they had problems with the creditor or client services. And it's just silly. It's just silly. Like, if somebody's experiencing financial hardship and they've hired professionals to represent them, work with them. Stop. I'm going to go to a place where I'm going to start calling people names, so I'm not going to go there. But it's just ridiculous that it gets to that point. Now, if you want to hear like the definition of idiocracy, there's a movie that I've been told to go watch. It's actually the title is called Idiocracy. And it's this guy that basically gets, frozen in time for something like 40 or 50 years, through the government. He wakes up in the future and he realizes that everybody's, become complete idiots. I got to download it or rent it or something. But this is basically what happens in the credit and collection world for quite a lot of transactions, if I'm being honest with you. Back in, I think, 2010 to 2012 or so, there was new legislation that was proposed by banks, credit card companies, collection agencies, bankruptcy trustees, nonprofit credit counselors, basically everybody that didn't like what we were doing to try to change the legislation, which was really a terminate the debt negotiation industry bill. And I had to hire lobbyists to handle this, and go down to Queens Park usually once every couple of weeks to try to deal with this, because it was really bad. I mean, it got to the point where the lobbyists would actually say, "This is not a bill that protects consumers' rights," and we're dealing. And guys, I'm personally dealing with this, face to face with conservatives, the NDP, liberals, and I think there was one alt party candidate that I dealt with. But basically, whenever there's a bill that goes out, then they send critics to go and criticize the bill, and then distill it and then summarize it so the party can vote on that bill. So I dealt with all the critics that were dealing with that bill, representatives, and there's no difference between any of them. They don't care about people. All they care about is their position in government, getting reelected, and where the big money is going to come from to fatten their wallets. Like, a lot of people think that these NDP candidates, are like socialists, and they care about distributing wealth, and they care about the little guy, and blah, blah, blah. I found the NDP critic that I work with personally was the worst out of the bunch. This guy was bragging about his boats, his cars, and all the toys that he had. They don't care about people. Okay. All they care about, again, is reelection and what works best for them. The way that the bill broke down basically is it would end up costing the consumer a lot more money. There was less power and freedom that the negotiation agent would have to get the customer the better deal. And long story short, the end result of all of that was we managed to survive. Most of the industry kind of went out of business, but the structure that we had to put through ended up, I mean, we're still able to save people money, but it ended up, because of the legislation and the changes they made, costing people more money. So when the lobbyists were looking at this, they would often, again, call it the Protect Credit Card Profit Margin Bill. And it was funny because, I mean, like, you'd go and talk to and present to the government officials who are, again, supposed to care about the people on this and explain how this protects credit card companies' profit margins and makes them more money and gives them more control to keep more people in debt. Didn't care. It didn't matter at all. It is a bizarre industry. We're still around. I mean, we've been doing it since 2003. When I say we, I'm talking about Andrew, because he runs the day-to-day. Like I'm really just on this channel to help talk about these topics and spread some awareness. But very, very strange stuff. Anyway, Andrew, enjoyed today's show. If you guys have more than $15,000 worth of credit card debt, it's reverse mirror. So this guy over here has people in the office. Just go to totaldebtfreedom.ca. It's a two-step process. Fill out the form to get more information on how a quote would work for you, and then book a call. So schedule in a call with a representative to make sure you can talk to them. It usually takes about 15 minutes to figure out if you're a good fit. They'll package it all out. It might take a little longer than 15, but it might even take less than that if you're not a good fit. And they'll say, well, this is more of a bankruptcy type of plan, so you should go look at that. But yeah, if you've got that debt and basically what you're doing isn't resolving it, you find yourself throwing payments at it month after month, 6 months go by, nothing changes. You still see the balance lingering around. There's more month at the end of the money. You're not making any kind of headway and you're just treading water. Just do something about it. Give the office a shout, book a call. Again, it's for Canadians only. We always get people that are like, well, I'm in this country. Doesn't matter. If you're an expat, you're Canadian, you live in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malta, whatever, we can still help you if it's Canadian debt. We can't help you if it's debt from another country. You're going to have to talk to somebody local. There's a quick question here. Let's just grab this before we bounce out of here. Thank you for your free help, sirs. Would you consider speaking on surrendering a vehicle through hired mediator? What should one keep in mind? Well, if you've got a vehicle that you can't afford to pay for, and you're not able to maintain the payments, you can settle that. You can do it yourself. Again, I mentioned my book, or if you're in Canada, you can hire Total Debt Freedom to do it for you, as long as the amount owing is over $15,000. That's called a voluntary repossession. You basically just show up at the place that hooked you up with a car, throw them the keys, can't afford it, put a bill out in the mail, and then we'll deal with it that way. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, we're good.
All right, so we're back next Saturday morning. Give the like button a smash. Leave a comment below if you have a topic you want us to hit on. We're always looking for content. So, yeah, let us know what's going on in your head, and we'll chat with you guys soon.